Have you ever worried that all your ideas just lack originality? That even when you try to create something new, whatever you come up with has already been done before. The truth is, you're right. You aren't original. But here's why that isn't a bad thing. I've noticed some people, including myself, don't pursue ideas they come up with because there happens to be examples of the idea already being out there. Even though, when you think about it for a bit, it sounded like the execution of the idea was different. And that got me thinking, do we honestly expect all of our creations to be just totally unique? I mean, the things we make show off who we are, right? And I'm sure most of us would think of ourselves as unique. But if your book idea is kind of like that novel you read a while back, or that song you've written has chords like that bop on your Spotify rap, what does that actually mean? Does that mean your ideas aren't unique? Are you plagiarizing somebody else's work? What does it even mean to be original? Look, I get it. I have my own ideas that I realized were heavily inspired by something that already exists, and it's really discouraging to put in all that work and feel like you can't share it out of fear of being written off as a cheap copy of something better, isn't it? But I want you to ask yourself what's more likely. A, you're void of character and lack the skills to come up with original ideas, or B, that your ideas are your own, they're just influenced by everything you've ever experienced. If you pick the latter, I think you're right. Your ideas are like a patchwork of all the things you've come across and everything you've experienced. Subconsciously, you've stolen things you've liked from every song, every book, every single form of media that you've consumed. And it's these influences merging together that make you and your ideas unique, not the fact that you happen to come up with something first. And to give you a really good case study on this, nobody knows this better than a new favourite author of mine, Austin Kleon. In 2010, Austin released his book, Newspaper Blackout, where he'd find words and phrases in newspaper clippings that he liked, and then black out everything else to make poems. This book was so popular it sparked a blackout poetry movement, and its Tumblr blog ended up reaching over 140,000 readers. There was just one slight problem.
But over time, I started getting all kinds of emails and tweets and other comments that my work was completely unoriginal.
People were saying that Austin was ripping off British artist Tom Phillips' style. Tom took old Victorian novels, picked out words and phrases that he liked, and painted over the rest of the pages to make his book a hummument. And as you can see, Austin is just a total thief. He's an unoriginal plagiarist who clearly stole an authentic and unique idea from Tom. Here's what I would say if Tom also didn't steal the idea. Turns out a hummument is pretty similar to work from William Burroughs. He had a writing method where he'd take newspaper articles, cut out words and phrases that caught his eye, and then rearrange them into new sentences. If you keep digging, you'll discover that before William did his thing, painter Brian Geisen was already making poetry from newspapers he'd unintentionally cut up when preparing art canvases. And 30 years earlier, a poet called Tristan Tzara had performances where he'd grab newspaper clippings, throw them in a hat, and randomly pick them out to make poems. Austin went as far back as the 1700s, where Benjamin Franklin's neighbour Caleb Whitford would purposefully misread newspaper columns and mix up the words he said, turning them into all sorts of jumbled sentences. So how did Austin feel about this rabbit hole of stolen work?
So not only was my idea completely unoriginal, it turns out there was a 250-year-old history of finding poetry in the newspaper.
It's easy to say Austin's idea wasn't original, but he didn't inherently copy anybody else's work. If you really think he did, you're ignoring that all 6 works are different and that each one builds on the last. In his book, Steal Like an Artist, Austin compares this to a family tree where you have a genealogy of ideas, with each new idea inheriting something from the previous one. That kind of thing just reinforces my belief that nobody has any kind of natural right to creative ideas. If people did, it would really limit the amount of creativity out there. Would you honestly say that people should be able to claim ownership of ideas like rearranging words, picking random words from a hat, cutting up newspapers, or painting over words? Seriously? Of course you wouldn't. Because all creative works build on what came before them. I want you to think for a moment about how much shit we would miss out on if we just accepted you couldn't evolve existing ideas. Did you enjoy watching The Lion King when you were a kid? Well, too bad it's pretty much just like Hamlet. You know, where a king dies at the hands of his brother and then the prince tries to take back the throne. Since when has intertextuality suddenly been considered stealing? I mean, Was your childhood seriously formed through plagiarism, or did Disney take an older piece of work, evolve it in an interesting way, and deliver a great story to a new generation of kids? Or how about this? Do you like every pop song that happens to use the same 4 chords? Too bad they're all ripping off Scott McKenzie's San Francisco. It's actually the first song to use that chord progression. Is every pop song suddenly unoriginal because they just happen to play? Or are artists just taking an inherently basic melody and evolving it to tell their own stories? Hell, even this video idea isn't original. Even ignoring Austin's influence here, this video took inspiration from a quote from Picasso: "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Except Picasso didn't actually say that first. The quote goes back to Igor Stravinsky, who said that lesser artists borrow, great artists steal. Except he also didn't say that. You can go further back to T.S. Eliot, who said that bad poets deface what they take, good poets make it into something better. The irony of the quote about artists stealing being stolen is certainly not lost on me. And I guess that's the point, right? It's honestly funny how I used to think that having an original idea meant coming up with it first. Because when you think about it, the real irony is that none of us are original, in any sense of the word. Your physical being is a combination of your parents' DNA, while the way you were brought up is a mix of various parenting techniques passed through generations. Your fashion sense is a mixture of current trends and your own individual taste, and even your own opinions are a combination of the things you've been exposed to and the views of the people around you. All of these traits and experiences have come together to make you the one-of-a-kind person you are. Nobody chastises you for that, so why not extend that to your creative ventures? Because at the end of the day, great and original ideas don't come from intelligence or creative talent. They come from perspective. And you, with all your different influences, have a perspective like nobody else. So whatever you're putting off making, from a book to a YouTube channel, just remember this. You don't have to be a genius to come up with cool, unique ideas. You just need to be yourself.